Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Mm.
where we dig into a bunch of your sources and try to pull out some fascinating nuggets of knowledge.
Hmm.
Today, we're going to be diving into something you've given us quite a bit of material on, the concept of reading.
Oh, interesting.
Now, we're not just talking about like sounding out words on a page.
Right.
You've provided us with some sources that kind of have us thinking about reading
Mm.
in a much broader sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating way to look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you gave us this excerpt about the benefits of reading books.
Okay.
You know, the classic.
Right.
But then you threw in this curveball,
Oh.
the Wikipedia disambiguation page for reading.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, my first thought was, wait, a disambiguation page?
Yeah.
But it's actually turned out to be like a goldmine of interesting connections.
Disambiguation pages are so fascinating because they highlight how ambiguous language can be. One word, multiple meanings, and a whole world of context just waiting to be explored.
That's what I love about this deep dive.
Yeah.
It's not just about like the benefits of reading books, which we'll
Yeah.
touch on,
Right.
but also about expanding outwards to explore this broader concept of reading as like a fundamental skill.
A skill we use way more often than we realize, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start with that excerpt about the benefits of reading books.
Okay.
It lists a lot of the usual suspects,
Mhm.
knowledge acquisition, mental stimulation,
Yeah.
vocabulary expansion, and so on.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
But one benefit that really stood out to me was the idea of reading as like a form of stress relief.
Oh, that's interesting how immersing ourselves in a fictional world can provide a sense of escape and tranquility.
It really is.
Yeah.
For me, curling up with a good book is like stepping into a mental soundproof booth. All the noise of the day just fades away.
That's a great way to put it.
Do you think this idea of like finding clarity and meaning through reading applies even when we move beyond traditional text?
Absolutely. And that's where the disambiguation page comes in.
Okay.
It highlights how the act of reading extends far beyond the printed word.
Right.
It's happening all around us all the time.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this disambiguation page a bit further.
Okay, let's do it. So this Wikipedia page, it lists all sorts of different meanings for the word reading.
Okay.
It's got everything from like the traditional act of reading books and articles
Mm-hmm.
to computers reading data,
Interesting.
legislatures reading bills.
Okay.
We even see it used in the context of like psychics giving readings.
Wow.
It really is a multifaceted concept.
It is, and it makes you realize just how integral this idea of interpretation is across
Right.
so many different fields.
Yeah.
It's not just about deciphering words on a page. It's about deriving meaning from any set of symbols in any context.
Exactly. And if you think about those benefits we were discussing earlier,
Okay.
like how reading can boost mental stimulation,
Right.
it's fascinating to see how those same benefits apply when we consider these other forms of reading.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Reading a challenging novel can feel like a workout for your brain.
Hmm.
And I imagine something similar happens when a computer reads data or a legislature reads a bill.
Oh, absolutely.
They're both taking in complex information,
Right.
be it code or legal language,
Yeah.
and having to analyze it to understand the bigger picture.
Precisely. These processes all require a certain level of mental agility,
Okay.
the ability to recognize patterns,
Uh-huh.
connect the dots,
Mm-hmm.
and extract meaning from sometimes very dense information.
And just like reading a good book can expose you to different perspectives and
Right.
broaden your worldview,
Yeah.
so too can these other forms of reading help us make sense of complex systems.
Absolutely.
Whether it's understanding the latest technological advancements or navigating the intricacies of our legal system.
Right.
It all comes back to that core concept of reading and interpreting information.
It's about seeing the world as a text waiting to be decoded, whether that text is written in words, numbers,
Yeah.
or even social cues.
Now, speaking of texts waiting to be decoded,
Okay.
the disambiguation page also lists a bunch of places called reading.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I have to admit, I was a bit thrown off by that at first. Is there actually a connection there?
It's not a coincidence exactly.
Okay.
While many of those place names likely have historical connections to literacy,
Right.
perhaps stemming from monasteries
Mm-hmm.
or early centers of learning.
Interesting.
There's one reading in particular that stands out.
Okay.
Reading, Pennsylvania.
Right. I remember seeing that on the list.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty sizable city.
It is.
Much bigger than Listenerstown City, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
What's its claim to fame?
Well, Aside from being the fifth largest city in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
Reading has a rich industrial history.
Hmm.
It was a major hub for the railroad and manufacturing industries for many years.
So maybe not directly related to books and literature in the traditional sense,
Right.
but still an interesting example of how a name can carry layers of meaning,
Definitely.
and how even place names themselves can be read as symbols that tell a story.
Exactly. It all circles back to this idea of deriving meaning from symbols,
Hmm.
regardless of their form.
Okay.
And that brings us back to the core concept of our deep dive today,
Yeah.
expanding our definition of reading.
I like it.
We started with the benefits of reading a good book.
Right?
But we've quickly discovered that reading is so much more than just decoding words on a page.
It's a fundamental skill we use to interact with the world around us.
Yes.
To understand people, to navigate complex systems, and to make sense of our own experiences.
It's about recognizing that we're constantly reading the world,
Hmm.
even when we don't realize it.
It's like we're all detectives in a way,
Oh, I like that.
constantly gathering clues and piecing together the bigger picture. So what does this all mean for the average person going about their day? How does this broader view of reading actually benefit us in a practical sense?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's almost like having this hidden superpower, the ability to decode the world around us on a deeper level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a heightened awareness of all the subtle ways that we interpret the world.
Right.
Think about it. We read facial expressions to gauge emotions.
Okay.
We read body language to understand intentions.
Right.
We read social cues to navigate different situations. It's all about interpreting those signals and extracting meaning from them.
I'm starting to see those reading moments everywhere now.
I know, right?
But I have to admit, I've definitely had my fair share of misinterpretations. Like, that time I thought someone was waving at me, but they were actually waving at the person behind me.
Oh, no.
Talk about an awkward moment.
We all have those moments, though.
Yeah.
It just highlights how reading isn't always a perfect science.
Yeah.
There's room for error,
Uh-huh.
for subjective interpretation, and even for our own biases to creep in.
That's true. So how do we become better readers of the world around us?
That is the question.
How do we sharpen our skills and avoid those misinterpretations?
Well, for one, it's about being more mindful and present in our interactions.
Okay.
Instead of just going through the motions,
Yeah.
we can start to pay closer attention to the subtle cues people are giving off,
Mm-hmm.
both verbally and non-verbally.
Okay.
It's also about being open to different perspectives and interpretations.
Right.
What we read from a situation might not always be the whole story.
So it's not just about becoming more perceptive,
Right.
but also more empathetic and understanding.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's about recognizing that everyone has their own story, their own unique way of communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we can tune into those subtle signals,
Right.
the more we can build meaningful connections and navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater understanding.
Okay. I am officially convinced that reading is a far more expansive concept than I ever imagined.
Me too.
We started with the benefits of reading books,
Yeah,
which are still fantastic, by the way.
absolutely.
But this deep dive has opened my eyes to a whole new way of seeing the world.
It's amazing how a simple word can hold so much depth and complexity,
Yeah.
and how exploring those multiple layers of meaning can lead to such profound insights.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Think about the symbols you encounter in your daily life.
Mhm.
The ones you might not even realize you're reading.
Right.
Could be a facial expression, a news headline, a piece of art,
Uh-huh.
or even the way someone arranges the furniture in their living room.
Interesting.
What hidden messages are waiting to be unlocked? How can becoming a more conscious reader enrich your understanding of the world and the people in it? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep reading
Yes.
in every sense of the word, of like